I'm here today to talk to you about an advance in science. It's one of the type of advances that occurs only once or twice in a century. Science is the handmaiden of mankind. It is our role as scientists to provide benefits to mankind. And in this situation today, in this century, the 10th year of this century, I can tell you that we have an innovation from science that will be of unimaginable benefit to your population. We now have a means of preventing two of the worst cancers known to man and among the most prevalent. Cancer of the breast, adenocarcinoma of the ducts of the breast and the lobes of the breast, and cancer of the colon. These two diseases are among the top cancers in your nation as they are in the world. And I will announce to you today that they can be virtually eradicated with vitamin D and calcium. This discovery has occurred over a period of 30 years, 80 years since the initial discovery of vitamin D, and 178 years since the discovery of the role of sunlight and ultraviolet B in the prevention of disease. And it's quite simple. If we can maintain the serum level of 25-hydroxyvitamin D at 40 to 60 nanograms per ml, or 100 to 150 nanomoles per liter, you can eliminate almost all colon and breast cancer in your nation. And you can do it within the next few years, probably during your tenure in office. It happens quickly, it is done easily, with extremely small expense. It requires only universal testing of the population for serum 25 vitamin D levels, a very easy, very clear-cut test, and providing enough care on the part of the government to allow development of levels at 40 to 60 nanograms per ml, 100 to 150 nanomoles per liter, which is approximately double the average in most populations. Almost everyone in most populations is deficient in vitamin D, either because of latitude, lifestyle, pigmentation in the skin, clothing, and other factors. Now is your opportunity, during your period of office, to eliminate these scourges virtually from the face of your country's population.
Our next speaker came into the vitamin D message in an entirely different way. Dr. Mark Sorensen founded the National Institute of Fitness in Utah. This was a fitness facility, a fitness spa, that helped 2/3 of its guests get off of all diabetes medications, and I believe over the course of their existence helped people lose something like 110 tons of fat. And subsequently to that message, in teaching proper diet and exercise, learned the value of vitamin D and regular sun exposure. Dr. Mark Sorensen is the founder of the Sunlight Institute and is here to talk about sources of vitamin D. So with that, Mark, please come up.
Yes, the Sunlight Institute is a new institute. We are giving the same message absolutely that Carol is giving, and we want to get people back in the sunshine. We're talking a little bit more about sunshine perhaps than we are vitamin D per se, but it always, of course, leads to vitamin D. Okay, so we're going to talk about the sunshine, as you can see up in this slide, massive slide here, versus should we use pills, should we use fish, should we use some other source of vitamin D. And you may be surprised a little bit about sunshine, because it's amazing how many of us have been scared out of the sunlight in the last while. It's a terrible thing. Dr. Gindy from Colorado has noted that in the last 2 decades there's been approximately a 50% reduction in the number of people over that 30 nanogram per milliliter level, which is so critical to us to have any type of health. And as Carol presented to you, we really think it should be somewhere around 50, 60, 70, 80 now we're seeing. That seems to be what is going to help us. Let's take a look at the amount of vitamin D that can be produced by different methods. If we get a full body UV exposure, as I like to say, going out in a modest way, of course, and getting naked at noon for 20 minutes on each side, we can get about 10,000 to 20,000 international units in that particular time. That it depends on the skin tone and several other things, but we can produce a lot of vitamin D. Now we take a look at cod liver oil. 400 to 1,000 IUs for that much cod liver oil. Salmon, fresh salmon, up to 1,000 international units is not enough, folks. And farm salmon, which has very little in terms of vitamin D content, also 100 to 250 units. Fortified milk. Okay, that's interesting. It has to be fortified. It doesn't come naturally there, does it? Now, if we're going to get a 50 nanogram level and there's no other source of vitamin D, it will take for most people approximately 5,000 international units per day to get to that particular level. So what does that mean to you folks? You got to drink about 50 glasses of milk per day to get that kind of vitamin D level. Not a good way. And unfortunately, the type of vitamin D that we're getting from that source is a vitamin D2, which is not as effective. And so we do not get the power of the vitamin D that we need. It also leaves the body faster, it appears. So we've got a problem when we use the vitamin D2. So if we're going to do that and use vitamin D2 as our supplement from milk, then we're going to have about 100 glasses of milk per day. And I think probably that the damage done by that much milk will probably be better than anything you're going to get out of vitamin D. All right, this has been around a long time. UV light, which produces vitamin D, we're talking about UVB here, has been used since 1925, probably before, to help prevent rickets. Been a long time that this has been with us. But they scare us away from it now. We don't want the sun lamp on us, do we? Because it's going to cause a melanoma. Supposedly. Don't you believe it? Back also in the earlier part of the century, we see men here in England being in front of their sun lamps and so forth because it makes them feel so much better. And I might also add, although I don't have the slide on this today, that back in approximately those same times, Russians were using UV lights to dramatically increase industrial output among their workers. This is what sunlight does. This is what ultraviolet light does. Any type of UV that will produce vitamin D for you is going to give you this type of a result. And I am of the opinion from reading a lot of research in the last 8 or 10 years that the way to get the most health benefits literally is from sunlight rather than vitamin D pill. Both of them are wonderful, however. Now, we've known some of these things for a long time. Let's take a look at this. I was first introduced to this by a very good friend of mine, Dr. Bill Grant in San Francisco, who showed me these maps for the first time. Now, if we take a look here, we're taking a look again at, I believe this is the breast cancer. It's cutting off those slides a little bit for whatever reason. The breast cancer chart, and we see here up in the area up and around the red, in New England and so forth, we see a tremendous amount there. And we see in the southern part of the United States that it goes way, 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 way down. Now, there are some, what should we say, exceptions to that particular rule. You also will see in some of these slides that will come up here next that if we see a heavily populated area where we can have a lot of pollution in the air, where it filters out the sun and so forth, we'll also see that in those particular areas, even some of them in the south, we're going to see more of the diseases that we're talking about. Okay, tell me which one that is. That must be, is that ovarian cancer? That's colon cancer. Okay, this is colon cancer. Dramatic reduction of colon cancer in those areas, as we see again, that are where people are living under the sun all of the time. Carol didn't mention this, but there was a study on breast cancer that showed who women living in the South who were getting tremendous amounts of sunlight, actually seeking the sunlight, had about a 65% reduction in the chance of getting a breast cancer in a lifetime. Now, I don't hear anybody cheering for the sun right now. And of course, at this time of year, you've got to take a little bit different look at it because there is no vitamin D in your sunlight here at this time of year. We're in what we call vitamin D winter. So you either need a sun lamp of some kind or you would have to have a supplement to get enough vitamin D. And I believe this is ovarian cancer. Again, we're seeing the same types of relationships. Not all of them, as you notice, are identical. But we see in my state, Utah, in the populated areas along the Wasatch Front there, we get the most problem because we have the mountains there, we have more cloudiness there, and consequently we have less vitamin D. And there are other things. Okay. This has already been shown you because it was the introductory slide, and we're thanking Carol for that and Dr. Garland for the slide here. But if you note, the red area is where we have a terrific amount of vitamin D deficiency. Now, you might say, hey, we go south and we get better, except when you get down here into South America, of course, we're seeing also some vitamin D deficiency. This is something that kind of fans out from the north to the south until we get the equator, and then fans out again on most of our diseases also. For instance, I want to mention multiple sclerosis. If we take a look at the multiple sclerosis rates and so forth, we see most of them occurring in the northern hemisphere, very far north. But we also do get a lot of them occurring very far south. So you get a fan shape coming down, pointing out, and guess what happens when it hits the equator? It's non-existent. Actually, the equator, right at the equator, MS virtually ceases to exist. It's the most perfect correlation with sunlight that you can possibly imagine. All right, here we go again with baseline circulating vitamin D levels. And the Caucasian, that says African American, Hispanic, and all together. And we're taking a look at those rates that are below 20 nanograms per milliliter. Those are the dark bars on the bottom. And we see what we have is an incredible epidemic of vitamin D deficiency in this country right now. Those of you who are African American need to know that it will take you about 6 times as long in the sunlight to be able to produce the same amount of vitamin D that a Caucasian would produce. So you need to be longer there. You need to get more supplementation along with the sunlight exposure perhaps. Stay longer in a good tanning bed or whatever is necessary. We take a look at the top part of the bar, of course, that's the part of the population that is below 32 nanograms per milliliter, and I thought Carol did a great job of presenting the fact that that is not enough. 32 nanograms is not enough. We need to be, again, up around 50 to 60, 70, and 80 sometimes, people are saying at this particular point in time. All right, we're seeing a lot done about vitamin D. Have you seen how much Oprah has talked about vitamin D lately? Dr. Oz. Many others are discussing this. This is the in nutrient. Most of us here were vitamin D when vitamin D wasn't cool, way back when, just getting started and trying to get the word out. But it's being the in nutrient now, and we are, have you seen this before today? Again, thanks to Carol Baggerly, Dr. Garland, we're going to do a little bit more of a presentation on this particular chart. And this has got to be one of the greatest things, Carol, that's ever been produced, is this chart, because we can do so much with it. Okay, we take a look at vitamin D levels for different populations today. The non-human primate, we get over in the healthy part here. I don't know how many non-human primates get breast cancer. Can you tell me, Carol? You don't know. No, most of us don't know, I'm sure. I have a feeling it's very, very low, though. Okay, let's take a look now at the outdoor working adults, 40 to 52 nanograms. That's still not bad. We're getting up there to where we could be fairly healthy. So working outdoors. But the problem is with working outdoors, what are you going to get? Yeah, skin cancer. What's the bad one? Melanoma. Perfect. Absolutely, absolutely not true. I've reviewed at least a scientific paper that I've just written, which I'll have published soon, I hope. I've reviewed about 14 different studies, all of them showing the same thing. People who work outdoors regularly have far fewer melanomas than people who work indoors. And I remember Dr. Garland's brother Frank making a statement at one of the meetings that Carol put in San Diego. He says this, that melanoma is basically a disease of sedentary indoor office workers. I will never forget him standing there. And I thought, you know, that's exactly right. He described it just right. Let's take a look at a little bit more here. Okay, the normal adults, and again, we have normal. Normal here is in quotes because it is not normal to be down there. It may be average and so forth, but we're talking about people that are working indoors particularly, and they're getting down to 10 to 22 nanograms. And if we get down to 10, we're what we call severely, severely deficient. It's not much lower than that, where we see osteomalacia, which is also known as adult rickets. And I actually helped one lady get her vitamin D levels up. She had osteomalacia. She had a 6 nanogram level. She was on crutches. She was a massage therapist, and she would do her massage. She had to quit it because she felt like her clavicles were going to snap and her bones would actually shift in her chest. So she quit that. And she said a prayer. Now, I'm not trying to be religious, but she prayed about it, and she was led to me. I gave her some advice. We got her about 45 now. There is no arthritis in her body whatsoever. It is all gone. There's no osteomalacia. So, should they take us away from our sunlight?